I didn't want to go in. I just wanted to record. Just that, just a short video. A place where no one was supposed to go. But I went anyway. The door had wet paint. Or maybe it was something else, a warm substance. Sticky and old. My hands shook. It wasn't from the cold. It was from anticipation. I breathed slowly. I breathed chlorine and dust. I breathed a smell that shouldn't exist. Sweet chlorine, sour chlorine, chlorine that mixes with rust, chlorine with a metallic undertone, a background of dried blood. I didn't think about it. I didn't speak it out loud. I just moved forward. The light was white. Very white, almost colorless, as if the air had no right to be air, as if it were patched up. The hallways were long, but they had no perspective. You didn't know if they went forward, or if they stayed where they were. My footsteps sounded loud, too loud. The echo took time to decide. As if the place tested the sound first, I said my name, in a low voice, to check, to hear my voice, to anchor myself. The echo repeated it late, as if it imitated me poorly. As if the echo were laughing, I squeezed the camera. I turned on the recording. The screen went black for a second. Just a second. Then it came back. But it looked different. It looked wetter. It looked more fogged up. It looked as if the image were breathing. I swallowed hard. My throat hurt, as if the chlorine were sticking inside. I felt my skin shrink. I felt my pores open their mouths. I swore I would leave soon. I swore it was a joke, a fake place, a movie set, an illusion, but the smell did not lie. The floor was wet. It wasn't a puddle. It was a film, a skin of water over concrete. My boots dragged, a wet noise, a noise like fingernails. I looked sideways. There were white tiles. White, but not clean, white with stains. Stains that looked like finger marks. My fingers searched for a railing. I didn't find it. I only found a cold wall. The wall sweated chlorine. I brought my nose close. I wanted to confirm. The chlorine was stronger near certain lines. There were patterns. There was a sick geometry. It wasn't accidental. It was intentional. As if the place had its own breath. As if it kept the moisture so I couldn't forget. Then I heard the dripping. It wasn't loud. It was constant. It was patient. Drip, drip, drip. But each drop arrived crooked, as if the ceiling were not a ceiling, as if the water came from inside the wall. I walked toward the sound. Each step sounded further away, as if a hallway stretched behind me. I looked back. The entrance was gone. It wasn't that I couldn't see it. It was that it wasn't in the world. As if it had never existed, I forced myself to breathe. I breathed chlorine. I breathed fear. I breathed a thought that said, okay, okay, keep going, keep going. The dripping became closer, and then it became distant again. I started to walk fast. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. The camera shook. The video showed strange lights, shadows that didn't match my body. Shadows that moved before I did. I told myself it was stress. I told myself the place was weird, that's all. But my nose smelled something else. To old humidity, to wet fabrics, to clothes stored without air. To a basement, to a closed room, to accumulated guilt. I saw a door. It had no handle, but it had a perfect frame, as if someone had built it just for me to look at. I put my hand on the wood. It was soft. It wasn't wood. It was a varnished skin. I pulled it back. My palm burned. I made a joke. Great. How fake. My voice sounded cracked. The echo held it. It deformed it. And then it brought it back, as if it were someone else. I kept moving forward. I needed to leave. I needed logic. I needed a map. But every corner promised me an answer, and gave me another question. The dripping was no longer just dripping. It was a rhythm. It was a countdown. Drip, pause, drip, drip, pause, drip, like a code. like a metronome for an execution. I went close to the ceiling. I looked up. I didn't see water. I didn't see pipes. But the sound came from there, from an exact spot to exact, as if the place knew which part of my attention would break. I breathed again and smelled stronger chlorine. I felt it like a blow to the stomach. I wanted to throw up, but I only swallowed. I just kept going. Then something small happened. A shadow detached itself from the wall. It wasn't a jump, it was a slide, like ink coming off paper. I turned around. There was nothing, but my skin was still on high alert. I started talking to myself, in a low voice, so I wouldn't scream, so I wouldn't make noise. Calm down, keep going, find an exit, find light. The light flickered, once, then twice, then a long pause, as if it waited for my reaction, as if it fed on my breathing rhythm. I noticed the tiles. They were numbers. They weren't real numbers, they were marks. They looked written with something corrosive. They were sequences, they were repetitions, as if they counted levels, as if they counted failures, as if they counted me. I approached a mark. I touched it. It had heat. It had life. I pulled my finger back, but the heat stayed on my fingertip. Like a memory, the dripping began to align with my pulse. That was worse, because when something matches, it feels true. Because the body believes when the body recognizes. And I recognized the rhythm. I recognized the number of heartbeats, as if the place breathed with me. I closed my eyes to cut off the echo, to cut off the chlorine, to cut off that moisture stuck to my thoughts. I opened my eyes, and I saw the whole way extended toward me. I saw that I was walking without moving my feet. I felt the urge. I felt it pushing me from the ground. I held onto the wall. The wall was wet. The wall was warm. The wall returned the cold to my fingers. Everything got complicated at one point. A point where the ceiling lowered, where the light turned green, where the air became heavier. I heard metal screeching. Not like a door, like an old hinge, like something opening accidentally. I saw a hatch in the wall, circular, with a dark edge, with rusty screws, with stains that looked like fingers squeezing from the inside. I approached. I wanted to look in, but my instinct grabbed my chest. My instinct said, no. My curiosity said, yes, and my body said, you are already here. Then I looked. Through the hatch. It wasn't normal darkness. There was a void that smelled. It smelled of chlorine, but older. It smelled of stagnant water in a dead-end room, and I saw eyes, black ones. Not black as a color, black as an absence. Black like holes that suck light. The eyes didn't blink, the eyes were still. But I felt watched from inside my head. I backed away. The dripping changed. It became faster. As if the place celebrated the panic, I brought the camera to my face. I recorded. I wanted evidence. I wanted someone to believe. The creature didn't speak with a mouth. It made the air vibrate. The hatch began to emit a soft sound, a sound like foam hitting metal. And then, my voice. My voice came out of the hatch, but it wasn't me. It was my voice, bent, distorted, chopped, with an echo that bit. Help? It said it with my tone. It said it with my breath. It said it with my pauses. It said it as if it knew what I was going to feel next. As if it rehearsed inside me. I froze. I wanted to answer, but my mouth didn't obey. The hatch imitated again. Help? Again, closer, more deformed, like audio played on a damaged tape. I tried to scream, but my throat only gave air. It only gave a short sound. The echo swallowed it, and the creature returned it as a silent laugh. I tried to break the rhythm, to to walk fast, to run, anything, but the hallway didn't move. It stayed the same, it only darkened a bit. Like a squinted eye, the creature continued. It didn't look, it didn't blink, it just let the hatch speak. And my voice begged for help again. But this time it wasn't just asking, this time it was pleading. As if time had already passed from that place. As if I were already trapped, as if my voice were a future echo. I started to cry, not out loud, in silence. Tears without sound, because every attempt to stop crashed against the dripping. The dripping covered it, it replaced it, as if the moisture were trained. I checked my pockets. I looked for my phone. I looked for a signal. I only found a black screen. With a drop stuck right in the center, I touched it. The drop moved as if it were a small eye. I wanted to laugh. It didn't come out. I wanted to take a deep breath. It didn't come out fully. The hatch closed for an instant. Total silence. Then, the silence broke with a whisper. My voice, again. Distorted, but clear in the worst way. You are already down. I looked around me. The hallway seemed lower. The ceiling was closer. My shoulders shrugged on their own, as if the place pushed me to bend, as if my body were a door. I saw marks on the floor, wet footprints, but they weren't from boots. They were smaller, like finger marks dragging, like fingernails without flesh. I followed those marks, not out of bravery, out of desperation, because when you lack direction, you follow any sign. The chlorine was so strong it made me dizzy. My nose stung. Tears were running down my face. My lips burned. Every drop from the ceiling sounded like a metronome. Every drop marked a countdown. The echo became cruel. It repeated my movements. It repeated my fear. It repeated my breathing. But it repeated it as if it heard it from the inside. As if I weren't hearing. As if the place were hearing me. Then something simple happened. A tile came loose. I stepped on it by accident. And the floor gave way. It didn't fall into a void. It fell into a depth that had no name. I held onto a wall. The wall crumbled, like hard gel. Like gel that turns to liquid when you look at it. I felt my fingers slip. I felt my weight go. I felt that the hallway was no longer a hallway. It was the edge of a trap. I fell. It wasn't a second. It was an idea stretching out. It was a night with no edge. It was a descent that feels like dying slowly.